So next up is Sierra Golden, and she comes down from Seattle here, and she's seined for 8 years on a seiner in southeast Alaska. And I'm looking forward to hearing another seine story. Come on, Sarah. Yara.
Hello. How's that? Is that better? I love reading at Fisher Poets because I don't have to explain anything. So I'm just going to read, I'll just read poems. This is called Appetite. In the gravel parking lot behind the blue laundromat, I find raspberries, though here in the rain, arched canes are rare. Haven't been on land in weeks. Seems everything could knock me over. The steam stack leaks, the smell of fish rot and bleach. I find the exact wood screws I need in the hardware store. There's fresh water, hot showers, clothes warm out of the dryer, a bar full of strangers, cell service, in this berry patch where feral plants have blossomed and bear tiny chartreuse fruit. I want to eat each one. I want to walk back to the boat, cupping the whole harvest, leave nothing for the rest of town. Imagining the berries row-colored, I see somehow salmon thrashing in black nets, berry pink pearls spawned on deck. Each day, someone does something worse to another, so what would it matter if I ate all the raspberries alone? What could possibly happen if I placed each in the palm of another, one for her, for him, for them, for me, for you? Gracias. Cannery workers greet us by the ice chute and splash into the hold, shimmering water thigh-high and 34 degrees. They pump it dry, frayed tie-ups loop around tar-blacked pilings, sway-backed dock creaks high above our gray mast at low tide. Wet snow clumps down, someone hums, "You are my sunshine," as clouds sink over the dock. Lights flick on before sunset, fight the damp and dark. Jorge and Gordo offload 60 tons of herring. Their heaving lungs hang steam puffs big as buoys in the ripe roe smell of the hold. They shuffle and shovel the gape-mouthed fish. A cork yellow moon cracks cloud cover and shrouds us all in the same half shadow. I wish on milky scales, stuck like stars to their neoprene green pants, that I never have to leave here, never have to weave a home in some far-flung place, dreaming my family together while I work a job no one wants. So this is, I had a book come out this year, it's called The Slow Art, and it's all fishing poems. And I like to always point out that none of them are really totally factual. I mean, that makes sense for fishermen, right? But this one, there's a famous bar in Pelican, Alaska, called Rosie's, and so in this one I kind of take on the voice of Rosie's daughter. Rosie's. Rosie's is empty these days, old oak bar, smoke-stained and carved all over with varnished names and spidering cracks like scars. Fake and fading roses wilt on the untuned piano, where I learned to play chopsticks and Chopin, sang soprano for fishermen and cannery workers after my bedtime. Mother, holding a lime, would scold me, head shaking, then mime just one more over the crowd. Men, rowdy, yelling for beer, would grin, call me dear, and leave a coin or two heaped up here on the piano bench. I'd hide them in my small pink heart purse, sneaking one at a time, making the big pile look sparse. I'd dream of a real stage, save all the sticky change, count it each night, wondering how much was enough for red velvet curtains. But I found fast boys, big joints. The slick money ran through my fingers like dust motes drifting in the piano strings. When the snow fell, I wrote my first love note, sipping hot toddies by the potbelly stove. I overflowed my heart, sought love in a snowman's cold kiss. Skunk cabbage unfurled, black bears nipping them off near the mist-drenched ground. In the first bad year, the cannery closed, but boats would float in anyway, night after night. Skippers sat moored on tall red stools till daylight. I learned to slosh out whiskey and gin, fry crisp fish and chips, but each summer I pour less liquor, count more empty slips. The last folks, famous Rosie too, my tough bucktooth bartending mom, have gone away, will soon pass away. I wince and bend, pull a small string. The hot pink tubes and links of neon light flicker, fight shadows, and then are wrenched into the sinking night. This is another Pelican poem, and I haven't been there for a few years, and I know there were some new businesses happening there, so I hope things are a little bit more exciting in Pelican. But one of the things about Pelican is it's a tiny town built on boardwalks along the shore in Lisiansky Inlet. And the only place in town, at least when I was there, that you could get cell service was at the dump. And the dump was a mile outside of town, straight up a mountain. So once you got to town, if you wanted to make a phone call, you had to go to the dump. So this is called Town Day. And so he clomps off the boat and off the float, up the ramp, away from town, hot showers, a fresh bag of flour, and stamps for stacks of love notes he wrote on watch, ignoring the whales. He turns left at the king hung from a ladder's rung, gills veiled with blood, and puddled red guts saved for dogs baying under the boardwalk. Quick sounds of town give out to the woods and dump. There's no silence. It's all breeze, spruce trees whiskering his ears, and eldritch calls of ravens scavenging bones and beer cans. Today's the day he finally gets to call his one sweetheart. All that time fishing, nothing but skipper's grunts cut the hard face of solitude. 10 days waiting for invisible waves to carry his tin voice across vast land, across dull, plain houses huddled in clumps, and into cold plastic pressed to the precious ear his tongue loves to enter, caressing calyx whirls of cartilage and tender folds of pink flesh. And so he lingers all day at the dump. He dials and dials, fingers moving like pretty pleas, like knock on wood, like long prayers, like rain dancers bright in his loneliness, who stomp for a connection that comes on just the right wind above the tattered trash. It does what it can to keep them in love. This is a little poem. It's called Weather Report. Sometimes the mist moves through like a breath, colors him foggy, fills him like a sigh. Sometimes the mist moves like breath, colors him foggy like a sigh. Sometimes mist like breath colors him. Sometimes mist, sigh, mist. Sometimes sigh, sigh, sigh. Follow the really short one with a really long one. This is called Aristotle's Lantern. And the reason it's called Aristotle's Lantern is that sea urchins, when Aristotle wrote about sea urchins in his book, The History of Animals, and when that was translated into English, people thought that he said that their mouth and chewing organ looked like a horn lantern. But this translation has now been noted as a mistranslation, and he was actually describing the entire body of the sea urchin as looking like a horn lantern. Yet, biologists continue to use the term Aristotle's lantern to refer to the chewing organ of sea urchins, and all of that will factor into this poem. Alternate title, Growing Up. Her father taught her to eat sea urchins, tapped their dripping purple shells open with a pocket knife, slid the gray blade under a triangle of cognac-colored roe. The eggs quivered, slipped from the knife to his tongue. He taught her to dress a trout in 2 cuts, to find sea asparagus, forage for chicken of the woods, salmon berries, Labrador tea, to light a small fire in the rain. He taught her to sit quietly, to tell a story, to listen while he talks about North Dakota, his father growing wheat, the bite of dust rising under his feet as a boy, sweet feel of sweat just before a storm breaks open, first drops pocking the cracked pond bottom, and green blooms after. She learned about the postcards her grandfather wrote in the Coast Guard. Mom arrived safely in Seattle, though knocked the top off the mast coming under Ballard Bridge. Maybe I'll come home when we finish the repairs. I miss the thunderstorms. It only drizzles here, and the voice of God is absent from the weather. How is the garden? She learned that her dad chipped cement from bricks for pennies, hoed the weeds by windbreak trees, and had a pet monkey named Nola who would spit in your face. This was before he moved to Alaska, started fishing for salmon every summer, herring and halibut in the spring and fall. His first skipper, a Japanese man called Sneak Attack, told him urchin shells are 5 fused plates, pentamerism that radiates tiny spears weaving in ocean currents. Sneak taught him to read a chart and mend the small meshes of a seine into a perfect pattern of collapsing diamonds. He drifted by them years ago in Lucky Cove, her dad nodding, "That's him," as he taught her to run the bilge pump that pushes water from the belly of the boat through a small hose, spraying it back into the ocean. This afternoon, a hydraulic hose blew, pouring 50 gallons of hot yellow slick all over the engine room. The bilge filled with oil, the color of Dakota wheat her grandfather grew on the farm, where he later pumped oil with a hammering black rig. She remembers learning to play poker on his beige carpet, the strange way he shuffled, one thumb shorter than the other, the tip lost long ago. He sipped whiskey, taught her to bluff and fold, to go all in with every matchstick she had. 12 hours later, there's still oil in the bilge, stars blaze like 1,000 match heads burning, and their curling wake wavers like blue smoke. Her dad tells her to pump the muck overboard, just like he taught her that day in Lucky Cove. She's told to do it in the dark, middle of her midnight watch. Then he sleeps while she dims the deck lights too low for another boat to spot. She turns the yellow handle, checks over the rail to see water pour from the bilge hose. The white gush turns to the slow slop of oil, morphing gray shapes, eerie in icy strait. All she can think of are the sea urchins, how she's read that tube feet push their globes along stacks of sea rocks, the same blue-black color as the Coast Guard uniform her grandfather left her. It fits like it was tailored in Japan for her and not him. At 18, he was a small man. When her dad was 18, he left home and everything her grandfather ever wanted to teach him: taste of whiskey, the good burn in his throat, how to grow blonde wheat that rolls like waves, that business of the ground spilling black gold like blood, as if bitten by a sea urchin's 5 self-sharpening teeth. They cut through stone. The mouth, Aristotle wrote, looks like a horn lantern, or he didn't. Everyone disagrees how to translate which parts of urchins he penned into light, so she doesn't know whether to imagine the mouth as a beacon inside or not. She wants something of her own to light a path, to flicker like a small oil lamp in the dark. Instead, she's got smudge of oil and smoke, staining her fingers the same as her grandfather stained his, pulling oil in streams from the earth. She's dumping it back, watching it seep and spread. Her father doesn't know what he's asked. Under the boat's greasy sheen, sea urchins chew through microalgae, seaweed, fish carcasses, even another urchin's fingerling spines. Clouds cover pinprick stars. It begins to rain. There is no light. She turns the yellow handle back. The slow slop stops. She finishes her shift at the wheel, sleeps in her bunk at sunup, curtains pulled against the light. She dreams the whole mess again and again, trying to teach herself how to be her father's daughter, how to let her grandfather's black ashes blow back into the prairie. I'm going to read 2 more real short poems. This one's called Cold Nights. Fire unlit, I slide small blades through fresh herring, thin ribs just a prickle as they crack, flesh peeling into strips no longer or thicker than my palm, breath shivering out, shadows scooping into a small circle of light. You layer mason jars with onions, lemons, fragile white fillets, and the bitter embrace of pickle juice cooled in the dark. Pink peppercorns drift like planets, cloves, comets. These cold nights, the jar is the universe, and we find its light. I wrote this book over probably a period of about 8 years, and I didn't realize it was about love until like the last 6 months I was working on it. And so I think, and kind of a lot of different kinds of love, right? And this, I think, last poem really embodies the sense of community that we have in fishing that I'm so grateful for. Salmon berries. The fish plant is closed, the church empty, the school all rotted like raspberries that didn't make it in the rain anyway. The sun shines today. Once in August, the post office is open Tuesday and half of Saturday. The water line bursts, the cafe closes, the laundromat too. Rosie's is open though, her wrinkles gathered up behind the bar. Whiskey is the only liquor left. No mixers, no water, the water line has burst. Who would want to live here? The residents' proof of something though that can't be said for the town's flickering out, the waiting for only stars to glow over the belly burn of booze. We pass the season's last salmon berries from hand to hand, one for her, for him, for them, for me, for you. Thank you guys.